So class, now you must be wondering what is resonance stabilization. So basically resonance is something which allows delocalization. So therefore the overall energy of the molecule is lowered since electron occupy greater volume. So delocalization of electron is there in case of resonance. So they are delocalized means they occupy more space, therefore energy is lowered, and low energy means high stability. So molecules that experience resonance have delocalization of electrons and they occupy more volume, and hence the energy is lowered, and therefore they are more stable than those which do not have delocalized electrons. So those molecules which do not have delocalized electrons are known as resonance stabilized. So here in this case the resonance is stabilized because of the presence of these cyclic rings. So these are causing more planarity. Okay, more planarity, and the electrons are resonance stabilized means they are not delocalized because it is a closed structure. They cannot move or they cannot occupy more space. Hence, these are less stable. Okay, and their energy is higher. So these are resonance stabilized. And what happens when there is more resonance stabilization and planarity? It increases the stiffness and increases the restriction of rotation. Now this is all about main chain structure. Now let us see the side chain structure. Substituents attached to the atoms in the main chain of a polymer molecule have profound and often complex effect upon the flexibility of the molecule as a whole. These effects may be divided into These effects may be due to size and shape of the side chain, and second, polarity. Size and shape. It is not surprising that the size and shape of side chain attached to the main chain of polymer molecule will determine the extent of steric hindrance, restriction of rotation, and stiffness of the polymer molecule. Hydrogen steric hindrance by hydrogen atoms is slight but significant, as can be seen by eliminating them. The C double bond in the main chain of polymer molecules only half as many hydrogen atoms attached to it and produces less steric hindrance and greater freedom of rotation and flexibility in the C bond adjacent to it, particularly in diene elastomers. Introduction to main chain atoms with valence of 2, particularly oxygen and sulfur, produces links which do not need any side groups, not even as small as hydrogen. So with valency of 2, oxygen and sulfur produces links which do not need any side groups, not even as small as hydrogen. So COC and this CSC, and these therefore tend to permit free rotation and produce greater molecular flexibility. The COC bond in aliphatic polyethers and polyesters and CSC bond in aliphatic sulfides all produce greater flexibility and lowering melting point. Similarly, the CSSC bond in aliphatic polysulfides and especially the SiOSi bond in silicones are so flexible that they actually produce excellent elastomeric properties. These molecules are all are all more flexible because they lack even the minor steric hindrance of the hydrogen atom as a side chain. So size and shape of the side chain also plays a major role in determining the flexibility or the restriction of rotation of the molecule. In comparison with most other structural features in polymers, however, the hydrogen on the methylene group offer relatively less little steric hindrance, and the presence of polymethylene CH2N times group in the polymer chain generally has a flexibilizing effect, as been noted particularly in polyester and polyamides. The methyl side chain in polypropylene produces considerable steric hindrance, forcing the molecule to a shape of a helical coil even in its liquid form, and making the amorphous polymer turn glassy near room temperature. Similarly, stiffening effects are observed in poly-alpha-methylstyrene and polymethyl methacrylate. The natural rubber and synthetic polyisoprene, where the methyl group is attached to a C-double-bond-C at a 124-degree angle. Steric hindrance of the methyl group is less important, and the molecule remains flexible and rubbery to quite low temperatures. In silicon rubber, the larger silicon atoms in the main chain and the unsubstituted oxygen alternating with them space the methyl groups so far apart that there is little or no steady hindrance between them inside, and the chain remains highly flexible down to very low temperature. So this is all because of the side chain structure. Okay, but as I said, side chain structure, flexibility of a molecule as a whole, these effects may be due to size change, size and shape of the side chain, and also the polarity of the side chain. So let us see polarity. When the side chain substituents are polar in nature, they tend to repel each other, restricting rotation and stiffening the polymer chain further. Thus, polytetrafluoroethylene and fluorine, the fluorine atom are not only larger in size than hydrogen, but they are highly electronegative, also make them repel each other and stiffen the polymer molecule into a rod-like structure, which is very inflexible and very high melting. Chlorine atoms are also quite electronegative and larger in size, making polyvinyl chloride a fairly rigid molecule. Addition of liquid ester plasticizer neutralizes some of its polarity and repulsion, and thus helps to increase the flexibility of the polymer molecule. In polyacrylonitrile too, the triple bond and C triple bond and side groups provide both steric hindrance and dipole repulsion, stiffening the molecule into a rigid roll. The most extreme effects are seen in studies of polyelectrolyte solution, highly ionized polyalkylate, carboxyl methyl cellulose, and polyquaternary ammonium ions contain so many like electrical repulsion that the normally random coil expand into a much stiffer, more rod-like structure. Such expanded structure increase solution viscosity so markedly that they are very useful as thickeners and gelling agents in foods, cosmetics, aesthetics, paints. So this is the gas transition temperature of the substitute polystyrene. So as the polar group increases, the Tg also increases. So what happens basically when you study polyacrylate solutions, electrolyte solution, highly ionized polyacrylate, carboxyl methyl cellulose, and quaternary ammonium ion. They contain so many electrical repulsion that they normally random coil expand into a much stiffer, more rod-like structure because of their polar side chains. Such expanded structure increase the solution viscosity so markedly. So more rigid, more stiff, therefore more viscosity. So they are useful as thickeners, gelling agents in food, cosmetics, and latex paints. So this is all about polarity. Here you can see the side chain. This side chain, the melting point is 160, and this side chain, the melting point is 2808, and this 240, and also the TG is increasing. Why this is happening? Steric hindrance of pinnacle side chain. So more near the main chain is the cyclic group, then more stiff it is. Here there is a gap because of CH2 CH2. Therefore it is slightly less that melting point. Then there is only CH2, so it is slightly increased the melting point. Then this is directly attached as a side chain. Then it is 240 because it is polar in nature. So substituents are polar in nature. They tend to repel each other, restricting rotation and stiffening the polymer. So this is all regarding the restriction of rotation. I hope you understand. Any difficulty you can ask.